very interesting program today. It's about an iconic figure of U.S. history, Uncle Sam, and we also are fortunate to have a very special guest speaker today. Want to welcome you all to the Historic Society. We have refreshments and coffee and beverages. Please take advantage of that, and hope you enjoy the presentation from our special guest.
Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome.
I know that guy.
Hi, I know you. I know you. So, welcome to our pre-4th of July festivities. Our subject today is the origin and history of Uncle Sam, and about the man. His name was Samuel Wilson. So I'm going to just tell you about that for a second. I'm going to take the hat off because I'm going to start laughing. I think it'll be about 10 minutes if I keep that one down. Maybe. Do you want it on?
Yes. You gotta do it right.
I don't even know. So first of all, welcome. We do have refreshments and everything, so please take some. We've got cheese and crackers, popcorn. Charlotte Harris, our volunteer, is gladly making all the popcorn for us, which is great. Our directors here are Steve Anderson. Thank you, Steve, for coming. You're the only director here today. I think it's vacation month. I do have, Steve, we can pass these out. If anybody would like a little booklet of the origin and history of Uncle Sam. And so I'm going to go through them. I'm not going to cover everything in the booklet, otherwise my wife will leave or fall asleep.
Just right. I've already
so-
heard this.
So on the front cover, and I'll wait till you get it, is actually a beautiful plaque. So if you've ever been up to Troy, New York, there's a beautiful museum up there. And it's the Cluett Museum, where it's their historical museum. There's a room up there. They find him the most popular and interesting man that they have, and he started Troy. So I'll tell you a little bit about Uncle Sam the man that was born in Menotomy, Massachusetts. Menotomy. So that was, back in the day, what is now Arlington, Massachusetts. It was actually West Cambridge. It's Arlington. So when you see Menotomy, that is where he was born. But the story begins before that. Talk a little bit about the Wilsons, because once you hear about the Wilsons, you're going to really find out why he was actually, Uncle Sam was the sobriquet, or the character figure that you see today. I want you, from James Montgomery Flagg. He was the cartoonist that made that really, really, really popular. But let's begin in 1635. All right, and I'm going to breeze over a couple of these stats. That's when Robert Wilson first came to Massachusetts. Now, 1620, you get the Pilgrims, so not far after that, Robert came. I don't know what ship he was on. I didn't research that part. But he came from St. Andrews, Scotland. That's where our Scottish DNA. And by the way, I am a descendant of Sam Wilson. And I'll tell you how that happens. And we have descendants in this room, part of the Coe family. We'll talk about that and how the Coes, the line goes up to the Wilsons. So Robert, his son, and his grandson also lived in Menotomy. They were all farmers back in the day. His great-grandson, Edward Samuel Wilson, was the family we're really talking about right now. Sam was a farmer. He was fought in the French and Indian War. And he married Lucy Francis. She was from Medford, in 1758. They only had 11 children. Ed Wilson Jr. was our great-grandfather. So Ed Wilson Sr., Ed Wilson Jr., that's the line that comes down to us. He was the brother of Sam Wilson. Remember that, Jeff? Ed Wilson Jr. So
I'm here to refresh, I don't remember anything.
Sam Wilson, he talked about in the book by Thomas Gerson. He was the best historian. Congress deemed him that the foremost authority on Uncle Sam is Thomas I. Gerson. And he had a book, and you can see the cover over there is Uncle Sam by Gerson and Hood. You're going to find most of his references that I'm going to talk about came from them, with a lot of the history and the genealogy from our grandmother, Ellen Thomas Jackson Co. That line goes up that way from my dad's side. So Sam went to school with his brothers, and this was prior to the Revolutionary War, and the schoolmaster was a Tory. So either you were a son of liberty, or you supported the English. We were still under the English crown at that time, or you were a Tory and supported the king, King George III. So Sam, one of his things at an early age, 6, 7 years old, he loved and heard stories of the Liberty Bell down in Philadelphia. He loved it. He read about what the inscriptions were on it, and he talked about it much at class. And I think he was a cut-up with the schoolmaster. The schoolmaster did not like that. And as it said in the book, he broke his hickory stick a few times on young Sam. So Sam, his father and his older brothers, especially Joseph and our Edward Jr., what did they do as farm? They hunt for hogs and deer, fishing, anything they could do. There was no money back then. They traded goods for goods. That's what they did. He went on a hunting trip, and what they did in the winter, they had a couple hogs, but when they didn't have enough food to really support the hogs, they let them go wild. So they go forage for their own food. They would be skinnier than the other ones. They could tell which ones were theirs and which ones they weren't. So that was a very, very cool thing. So they went up hunting. Sam's oldest brother was Joseph Wilson. He was actually already drilling for the Minutemen. And he was the oldest, and there was Edward, still not old enough to do that. And he befriended a Massachusetts Native American Indian from the Massachusetts tribe. His name was Wassanet. And he loved that family because they treated him very, very well. They fed him a lot of the hunt, his equal share, and he really respected that. And prior to that, remember the French and Indian War, and we were fighting the Indians, but this particular tribe did not bother with the folks in Menotomy because they were very good to them. So Sam, at a young age of 7, became, you've heard of the drum and fifer corps, and he was a drummer, but he aspired to be a messenger for the Sons of Liberty. So in the interim, he was drumming and going around and out the common in Menotomy. And here's a depiction on one of these pages of Sam riding to Menotomy or Arlington to Hanover Street. That was a regular route for him as a messenger, eluding British spies, and there were many. They were following them. They kind of knew that the older people were spies, but the Sons of Liberty and the others tried to use the young kids as spies and get them at nighttime riding the horse or going around and delivering messages to certain places. There was a place he really liked going. It was important for the Patriots. It was Dr. Warren's on Hanover Street. Dr. Warren made Sam an official messenger of the Committee of Safety in Boston and the Committee of Correspondence. So kind of an important thing for a 7-year-old to be a messenger. And now, And Rick, you asked this question, did he know John Hancock? Yes, he did. He now takes messages for John Hancock and did meet him, and Sam Adams, and occasionally to Paul Revere. He told Paul Revere, he was told, Paul Revere was a messenger at Sam's age. Paul was now 40 years old. But, and that's why Paul Revere writing, he was a messenger, big time messenger. Here's one I kind of forgot about this, but the Brits back then were called lobsterbacks. Redcoats, lobsterbacks, but I didn't remember hearing that one. One day they saw a group of British soldiers walking through Menominee, but this time they were kind of serious. They weren't talking to everybody. And Sam thought something was a little bit different about this group walking through. So he needed to report it, as the ammunition that the Patriots were saving up was in Concord. A number of redcoats had increased. Sam got to Dr. Warren's house and informed of the concern. He thought a fight was ready to happen. This is just before Lexington and Concord, so something was up. The British General Gage, in fact, started to send troops to Lexington and Concord. He started putting them up there. More and more troops arrived. Paul Revere had just come back from Lexington and warned Dr. Adams and John Hancock what was happening. So they started getting the Patriots and the Minutemen ready to go. So now it's the middle of 1775, in the morning of April 19th. Hoofbeats and footsteps could be heard on the Concord Road going through Menominee. And that was only 9 miles away. So Sam walked a short way with the Minutemen and was asking his father if he could go. He wanted to be a Minuteman. His father said, no, you're not going anywhere. You cannot go. You're still only very, very young. And matter of fact, your older brothers, Ebenezer and Edward, he told him they had to stay home as well. But they had to stay home and watch the children and the women and children. They fled to the woods because they knew something was up. This gets interesting here because Sam, they learned to hunt at a very young age. So they had a musket. Everybody had a musket. I don't know how young you were. They carried a musket and a horn with a powder, and you had the bullet pouch across his shoulders, and his Indian friend Wassenett was right there with him. So they didn't think the redcoats would be coming to their town. They were going to just go screaming up to Lexington and Concord. But a few of the troops, the redcoats, got lost a little bit. They started walking through the town, and they had an old Captain Lamson. He was from the French and Indian War, but he's pretty old, so he wasn't part of the Minutemen at this point in time. So he's with the young kids, with Sam and Wassenett, and all of a sudden they counted 14 redcoats coming at them. So Captain Lamson walked out and said, halt. And the redcoats looked at him and says, no, we're not halting at all. And they started charging at them. So the old men and boys fired at the redcoats. Sam aimed directly at one of them and shot, and the redcoat fell from his horse. Later you found out he died. So it was one of the first shots heard around the world. It was from Sam. Sam had killed the redcoat. He was sick about it, and totally sick. I mean, here he is, like an 8-year-old kid. He just, boom, knocked him off, and he died. But there was a quote in the book that Sam's father said to Edward, said to Sam, listen, you're going to feel sick. It's not a good thing. But you're going to be coming up against a lot of redcoats. They killed a lot of our patriots already. But you got to feel good for them in a way that they are human beings. And he tried to really relax them a little bit. So now more redcoats came in. They heard the firing. And they started looting everything and around there. So Sam went running off in his horse and tried to find more Minutemen to help back in his town. Sam was wounded. He got shot in the shoulder. It was just a surface wound. But the battles of Lexington and Concord took place at that point in time. So Sam, now working full-time with the Committee of Safety in Boston, met several delegates from the southern colonies on the way to the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. Sam stopped at an inn servicing as a place to drop messages. He did that all the time. He met two gentlemen there. One was named Thomas Jefferson. The other one was Patrick Henry. And this was after the first shot heard around the world. Jefferson said to Sam, "We've heard of you down in Virginia. You captured the first redcoats in the Battle of Lexington." And they didn't capture 14, the ones that they could. When they had the 14 come at them, they captured a number of them. And took their carriages, sent them down to the blacksmith shop. "My boy, you've helped ring the Liberty Bell in the hearts of man." Sam wanted to see the Liberty Bell so much. "I want to touch it and read the words on it someday." Patrick Henry tipped his three-pointed hat towards Sam and said, "You will someday. We'll meet again when you're older." So that was a part of Lexington conquered, and Sam's part in that. There was one part here where he's a messenger still. Battle of Breed's Hill is now coming up, Bunker Hill, which it was not a great thing for the Patriots there. They didn't win that, but they held their own a little bit. His father, Edward Sr., was shot in the shoulder and hurt pretty bad. But eventually, Edward Sr. Was in the Battle of Dorchester Heights. And that was in March 4th of 1776. They surprised the Brits big time and had them, they just evacuated Boston. That was evacuation day, if you all hear about that, on March 17th. Everybody was screaming, yelling, "Yeah, that's great, they're gone." So now, going forward, this is 1776. Later on in July, on July 4th, the Liberty Bell rang its bell, said Dr. Warren to Sam. The Declaration of Independence was written by our friend Thomas Jefferson. It takes a little while to get the word here, even for a messenger like you, Sam. So listen, Sam. And co-family, listen up to this one. I just found out about this. So listen, Sam, one of the 55 signers of the Declaration of Independence was a kinsman of yours. Talking to Sam Wilson. James Wilson is his name, a cousin of your father's. He wasn't born in America. He came over from St. Andrews, Scotland, when he was about 23 years old. So Edward knew all about him, and I put a little piece there. You could see where James Wilson was, but I did not know he was one of the founding fathers. So what Dr. Warren wanted Sam to do, they had prepared handbills of the Declaration of Independence, and he wanted them transferred on the Danvers, Lynn, monotony, and you have to be careful about that, because all the signers, the names were there, and the British wanted to kill every one of them, because they were traitors, according to the King George III. And so he did his job, he got them out there. He came back to his house after he got his the messages out there, the pamphlets are delivered. And his father called him when he got home and said, "This is our kinsman, this is James Wilson. He may be with us for a long time. He wants to be called Mr. Jennings, because they're going incognito. They can't say, well, this is James Wilson, the signer of the Declaration of Independence." And he brought with him a Quaker hat. Now, if you know anything about Quakers, they did not want to fight. They were, a lot of religious people, they were not fighting. They were neutral. But James said, Sam said, "He's not a Quaker." James laughed and said, "Yeah, I'm not a Quaker, I'm a fighter. But I'd love to live longer so I can do something else for America," which he did. So many battles ensued. You got Valley Forge, which was a horrible thing, and the winters were terrible. They weren't getting supplied with any more troops, clothing, food, supplies, and it was then after that the major victory over Saratoga on October 1777. That was great news and a great victory. So Here's one here, this was wonderful. John Paul Jones, we've heard of John Paul Jones. Captain Jones. They were trying to get the news over to Benjamin Franklin. Ben Franklin was in France at the time, trying to drum up support for get ships, supplies, guns, anything they could to help the Americans out. So they got the ship, the Ranger, which was the first ship in the U.S. Navy that bore the Stars and Stripes, the American flag. And John Paul Jones was going to race to get over to France. He had a little competition on that too. There was another one going from Salem because they needed two ships to go in case one got caught by the British. They needed to get the message over to Ben Franklin that we won a major battle. That would help get more money and troops, and it would be really, really good. The French didn't know which way to go. We were going to lose the war or win the war. Sam's older brothers, Joe and Edward now, our great-great-great-grandfather, fourth great-grandfather, were now fighting for the redcoats. Yeah, through the severe winter again, through Valley Forge, terrible conditions. Now the final of the war was over Cornwallis at Yorktown. That really ended the war. He threw up the white flag and it was over. So, ends the Revolutionary War. Sam is now back in monotony and soon made his way. The family needed to leave there and find a larger plot of land. They found a place in Mason, New Hampshire. So he sold everything in Menominee for 100 acres up in Mason, New Hampshire. And again, he was a farmer, he wanted some land. Joe and Edward were mustered out of the army later than Sam, so they came up there too. Sam started making bricks, bricklaying. That will bode well for him as he goes in his future to Troy. He thought he could never marry. Now, Sam met a young lady named Betsy Mann. Betsy was quite darling of all the guys out there, and Sam really loved her. But there's two other gentlemen that loved her too. There was Ebenezer, he wanted to be a preacher or a lawyer, and there was another one named Johnny Chapman. And we'll talk about Johnny Chapman in a little while, but Sam thought he could never marry her because he came from a poor family, and Betsy Mann was from a very, very wealthy family. So he wanted to start up his own business, have his own house, start his own life, and then come back and marry her and take her off to Troy. So he went to his house and asked her if she would wait for him if he started and got a home and everything in Troy to make a business house and home. And I said, I'll come back for you. She said she would, but it took years. So I'll tell you how many years that was. So in 1789, George Washington became our first president of the United States. James Wilson was made Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Sam and Ebenezer Wilson left for Troy on a wagon train. So you'll see this, the next page. So it's about 125 miles from Mason to Troy, and they had to walk. They did not have a wagon. So they actually worked for the people that had wagons, did odd jobs where they had campfires, they get wood for them for rides and shelter. So they're pretty industrious. Sam was more outgoing than Ebenezer, and that many families, new families in Troy. Now they're in Troy. He wants to start up a business, so he's doing all sorts of odd jobs. But he met Jacob D. Vander Hayden, I thought it was Hayden, a Dutchman. He owned most of the land in Troy, and the village bore his name. Sam was involved in town meetings. He wanted to meet a lot of people. He was outgoing. Vander Hayden spoke of the need for bricks. Now, a lot of the bricks that were in America at the time were brought over by the Brits. They were used as ballast in their ships. And Vander Hayden said, you know, I think the Wilson brothers know how to make bricks back in Mason, New Hampshire. There is a need, so don't hesitate to start that business, Sam and Ebenezer. So they did. The summer of 1790, the Wilson brothers started making bricks. And the first big building there in Troy was from their bricks, and they had an awful lot of them. There was a courthouse and jail. was made from their bricks. It was a big, big business for them. They also knew how to slaughter meat, pack meat. So that's another piece right there that they learned earlier in their life. So after 2 years, they started the meat packing business. E&A Wilson Company. They hired up to 1,000 workers. They operated cattle pens, slaughterhouses, and a cooperage. They had to make the barrels in casks to put the prepared meat in. The cooperage furnished salt, supplies for shipping up and down the river. Sam and Ebenezer furnished bricks for the first brick building, blah, blah, blah. And here is with Betsy Mann. On March 8, 1793, Sam borrowed money from Mr. Vanderhayden for his new home on lot 112 on the north side of Ferry Street. He wanted to build his home and have it complete before he went back to Mason to get Betsy Mann and ask her to marry her. And his brother Ebenezer, as a good brother would do, was teasing Sam. He says, "You'll never, she didn't look, she's not gonna look for you. All right, probably gonna marry Johnny Chapman. And probably married to Johnny by now." So, did not happen. The home in Troy was not ready, and Sam went out to get Betsy, and he was still there waiting for Sam. And he took her back to Troy where the house was ready, and she was ready to become Mrs. Sam Wilson. He and Betsy watched Troy become an incorporated town in 1801, and it was third in the state from trade and wealth. I think you had mentioned that. Who mentioned that about Troy being the fourth? Yeah. So they're right there already. It's third in wealth and trade because it's the river. The Hudson River is right there. They're going north and south.
Yeah, at one time, Troy was the fourth largest city in the United States.
Wow.
So,
Sam was a kindly man who walked around in his boots, cutaway coat, and top hat. Not like this at the time, though. He was clean shaven, too. He could be angry if he spotted somebody making trouble, too. He'd get him out of trouble, but make peace with those people making trouble. The businesses were still growing, and Troy into a city. Our country was having trouble with England again. This is before the War of 1812. So the Brits are now, they're fighting Napoleon. And so the Brits went out to sea and started kidnapping, bumping up the ships, capturing their cargo, but what they would do, they would take the sailors and incorporate them in their own navy. So what happened here was that Jefferson heard about this, and he started shipping goods, and all the harbors dried up, which was a terrible thing. So in 1807, the HMS Leopard attacked the American ship, the Chesapeake, killing 3 sailors and kidnapping 1,000. So that's what they like doing. So he said, oh boy. So James Madison is now president and declared war in England in June 18th of 1812. Troy was now a transfer point for troops joining the Army of the North. Uncle Sam was made meat inspector of the state of New York in September. Albert Anderson Jr., Steve, was contracted with a firm of E&S, Ebenezer and Sam Wilson, to supply prime pork and beef for the armies of New Jersey and New York. Here's a cool one. This is where it kind of started about, the U.S. and Uncle Sam. Governor Daniel Tompkins of New York and Albert Anderson Jr., the contractor, and former Congressman Theodorus Bailey of New York City inspected the Wilson establishment. They noticed the barrels of meat on the wharf were stamped EAUS. Albert Anderson, and we know it as being United States. However, they heard a workman ask another workman what it stood for. Now the workman working for Sam Wilson and Ebenezer, EA is for Albert Anderson, and the US is for our Uncle Sam Wilson, who inspects meat for the states. After many workmen that Sam had up there in Troy joined the armies at East Greenbush, Plattsburgh, and Schenectady, they spread the word that the man they worked for stood for the United States. A friend of Betsy Mann, here's a great one. So that's where the EAUS comes from. A friend of Betsy Mann's family was Francis Scott Key. He had gone to get Dr. William Beans, a prisoner on one of the British warships down in Baltimore Harbor. They were held prisoner all night while the ships shelled Fort McHenry. Just shelled them all night. The haze was so thick they could not see who won the battle, but Key could see the flag through the rocket's red glare. He was glad he wrote in it, on the back of the envelope, the song, The Star Spangled Banner. Uncle Sam told Betsy that song might become famous one day. Now, here's the one I like, and Paula, she liked this one the best when I talked to her about it, as far as she liked. He also remembered a friend of his back in Mason, New Hampshire, who became famous. The old boyfriend of Betsy's, Johnny Chapman, right? It seems he went around the countryside planting apple trees and was nicknamed Johnny Appleseed. That could have been Betsy's husband. Many honors were heaped on Uncle Sam. He died in Troy on July 30th, 1854, after living a couple years away from Troy. Uncle Sam was the 5th most important national symbol to emerge in our history, the 5th in terms of time. So the first one in the 17th century was Pocahontas. So she saved John Smith's life. She was on many New World maps. So you'd see a picture of Pocahontas. Replacing her pretty much was Columbia, a stately white woman garbed in flowering robes and peaked hat crowned with stars. So that was Columbia. Now Yankee Doodle, I mean, that was a derogatory term that the British gave the Patriots. And they didn't like it too much. And the Yanks eventually liked it because they beat the Brits and used their little song against them. But Brother Jonathan was created as a cartoon character to combat Yankee Doodle. It was always pro-patriot, not the Brits. So the Uncle Sam character that you see today is a different one. So the back of this is done by James Montgomery Flagg. And I will tell you, that one was very, very important. This was done in 1917, just prior to the World War I. He did that. It was a recruiting tool for the Army. And that's what it exactly says. I want you for the U.S. Army. And they use that for many, many, many times. Again, you see that more often than not. But there was another one prior to that. Frank Ballou created actually the cartoon character that we see today, but it was kind of crude. And then Thomas Nast, he was pretty famous, made it even more popular with his version on the cover of Harper's Weekly and Harper's Magazine in the 1860s. Really, that's how far along before it really became a big, big deal. So you have Sam Wilson becoming the character or the sobriquet of our country. Now, I'd ask you to take, if you like, I've got an awful lot of newspaper clippings from Uncle Sam. The lineage that is ours, the Coe family, my father, Frederick Allen Coe, through his grandmother, my grandmother on my dad's side, Ellen Thomas Jackson Coe. Her mother was Harriet Marie Allen. All right, Harriet Marie Allen's mother was Betsy Wilson. Not the Betsy from Sam, there was another Betsy. And Betsy's father was Edward Jr., who was the brother of Sam Wilson. So it's an easy line that you see. Sometimes you got to refer to it, but our grandmother in 1961, Ellen Thomas Jackson Coe, I give her all the credit in the world. She did a lot of work on all of this for years and years and years. I don't think we appreciated, the Coe kids appreciated what she had done. She talked about Uncle Sam all the time. But yet, on my father's side, Reverend Dr. Robert Wood Coe, he had a brother Sam. We called him Uncle Sam too. So I was confused as a young boy. What are we talking about? Which Uncle Sam are we talking about? I am totally confused. Uncle Sam's up at Plymouth all the time, you know. And so we have, while we're doing it here today, there's a lot of descendants in Easton. So my sisters, kids. You probably know this is Debbie Coe Luke. Her daughter is Heather. Kim Luke has 2 children, Connor and Caitlin. They're descendants.
Hedbergs now, they're Hedbergs now.
They're Hedbergs, I'm sorry. Kimmy Luke Hedberg.
Yeah.
Right. I've got my daughter here, who's Sarah Coe Aniston. At one time, that was Anderson. Another Anderson, Steve, I don't know. He switched it to Aniston, I don't know. But, and she's a descendant, lives in Easton, and has 2 children, my grandchildren, Bo Aniston and Sophia, both at the University of New Hampshire right now. So they are descendants of Uncle Sam. My other sister, Ann Coe Judge, and she has 2 children, Michael Judge, and they have 2 boys, Brennan and Aiden, descendants. And then Ann has a daughter, Katie Judge Duffy, and her daughter is Ryan Duffy. So we've got a lot of, and they were Katie's in Easton. So there's a lot of connections to Easton. Donnie Coe as Andrew. Andrew Coe's just retired from the Navy. He had a career down in Virginia. And so Andrew definitely is a descendant. He has 2 children as well. And I'm leaving out Rick, that was here a little earlier, Frederick Allen Coe Jr. So the Allen name comes up, the Jackson name comes up, a lot of Sams. My dog is called
Where's
Sam.
the Debbies in all of this?
The Debbie?
Yeah, never mind.
The Debbie Luke. There's no Deborahs. I don't think I can see a Deborah.
Yeah, never mind.
I don't know how you get a Deborah. So, and the Coes, we have the Coes up in California, we have Coes in Plymouth. A lot of Plymouth, the Walters, the Frys, 2 Coe families in California. So there's a lot of us around. So we're just fortunate to be part of the lineage. That's it. We're just happy and just very, very proud. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But if you don't, please look around. Thank you. Paula wants to leave, I'm sure. She's just ready to go out here. All right, thank you very much. Get something to eat. And thank you all for coming very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
This is a military flag. This is from my unit, which was the 211th MP Battalion out of Lexington, Mass. And we deployed twice. One first in Afghanistan at Bagram. This flag flew in our, what they call the Provost Marshal's office in Bagram. We did the security until somebody just sort of left it there. But I won't talk about that. And then we took it to Iraq in 2003, and we put it into our unit there, and I've been the keeper of that flag for a long time. It doesn't have a bald eagle on top or a ball. If you notice that in most towns, cities, buildings, you always see a ball on top of an American flagpole. That symbolizes the shot heard around the world. A lot of people do not know that. But that's the shot that was heard around the world out of Lexington. So that's how we do it, being from Lexington, that we do. And it's a sturdy flag. We honor it. And I decided to give it to the Easton Historical Society. They preserve a lot of things here, and so I think the American flag should be part of it. Thank you.